And here we are with our last match for Group A with DDahyoni versus Ik4rus. Ik4rus coming in with Ik4rus Shen, probably the most popular deck among the Group A competitors. This time Ik4rus will be going for the Vanguard Bannerman strategy, so Green Glade Caretaker and Shen going to be the only Ionia cards we see coming out, which means no Deny, which could play into his favor in this Jinx Draven matchup, as there's not a whole lot to deny outside of, a couple of abilities, things like the refuel off of the Augmented Experimenter, a couple of the burn spells, but for the most part, it's going to be combat tricks coming out. And then on the side of DDahyoni, we have a pretty standard Jinx Draven deck. The one thing that caught my eye was there are no Mystic Shots, as well as no Legion Rearguard. So it is going to be things like the Draven's Biggest Fan, guaranteeing an early Draven, as we see the Legion Saboteur come down on turn 1 here, and push through as much damage as you can do on turn 1. War Chef's going to be the response from Ik4rus, hopefully going to be able to get some favorable trades into this matchup. And a Draven's Biggest Fan going to be coming down as the response for DDahyoni. Could play another Draven's Biggest Fan, or could play the Zaunite Urchin, discarding the Draven's Biggest Fan and getting the Draven that is now on top of his deck. War Chef's going to come through. Be surprised to see a block here, as there is nothing clean and you just want to push through as much damage as possible. Yep, going to be the Zaunite Urchin, almost certainly going to discard the Draven's Biggest Fan. No need for a second one, as it only gets Draven if you don't have one already. Now the last breath on that will draw a new card as the Draven comes up off the top in a manner that everybody saw coming, as Draven's Biggest Fan announced it from the rooftops, said, hey, Draven's coming. And he's actually, DDahyoni's already pretty low on cards. This Jinx has a chance to get value. There's challengers abundant in Ik4rus's hand. Unfortunately, not a lot of ways to actually make use of them. The Fiora probably going to be the best bet here, as it trades into the Draven with this Brightsteel Protector. The Get Excited could take the barrier off of the Fiora, but that's a problem for another turn. In the meantime, we're going to see what he wants to play into these attacks. The Laurent Protégé could be a more favorable blocking scenario, so we'll have to see how that goes. Either way, this Draven almost certain to come through unless the Brightsteel Protector comes down on the War Chef, which, to be honest, would surprise me a bit. Could play the Fleet Feather Tracker and try to set up for next turn a little bit better, but almost certainly going to be a challenger unit coming down here. Wouldn't make a lot of sense even to block and play the Vanguard Redeemer. So it is going to be the Protégé. Going to try to get some favorable blocks here. The sabotage ability of the namesake Legion Saboteur. Going to be a couple of favorable blocks. Going to be 6 damage coming through, putting Ik4rus down to 11. Pretty stagnant life total, as there is no life gain in this deck. No Spirit Blade coming out in this build, just the Green Glade Caretaker and Shen. DDahyoni, thinking about this Draven Axe, could go for a level up on the Draven, or a trade onto the War Chef. Looks like it is going to be a trade onto the War Chefs, not wanting this Laurent to be able to eat up his Draven as a 3/5. So the War Chef going to come through and die to Draven's Biggest Fan. Going to get another axe for Draven, which does mean this Jinx gets to evolve next turn, which is a very early evolution. Turn 4, obviously the earliest that you can do it, as it is the turn that Jinx comes down. That's not necessarily something you care about discarding, as its main use, aside from refueling, is to just turn the Jinx on. So almost certainly not going to feel bad about that. And given the nature of the board at the moment, you feel like there's no way that Ik4rus is just going to pass without attacking. And it's going to be the Fiora coming down as well, going to turn on that Fleet Feather. Doesn't have a good answer for a Draven attack, so you do feel like an attack has to come out here. Could be trying not to do it, just so that the Jinx doesn't come out. But with only 1 mana left, I feel pretty safe playing the Jinx into this anyway. And it's going to be Fiora just trying to trade onto the Draven. No protection for it. However, Fiora, not the main win condition of this deck. The main win condition is actually going to be this Vanguard Bannerman, at least for this particular game, as it will buff up the wide board. And 11, not the lowest health total to be at here on turn 4. We have seen games end as early as turn 6. So that not going to be happening this game, as there is not a used cask salesman in the deck of DDahyoni, not focusing on the burn as much as going all in on the Jinx strategy. And unfortunately that second spinning axe going to make it impossible to upgrade this Jinx. Perhaps an oversight by DDahyoni, perhaps not. Either way. And Get Excited will actually do it. This Jinx could upgrade this turn. Almost certainly going to be a free attack from the Jinx either way. A riposte will not save anything, as the Get Excited can't just chew through that. Reading the Jinx upgrade just to make sure that everything is going to work out as he plans. Just has to not attack with this Zaunite Urchin, as the draw could disrupt everything. Might go for a preemptive Get Excited, it seems. Nope. Could go for a double spinning axe. Doesn't quite seem as good, though, as the Get Excited. You're not drawing anything else this turn, so you might as well take advantage of the mana that you have. Is just going to be a spinning axe onto the Jinx. Ooh, and then a Get Excited onto the Laurent. That actually might come back to bite him, as now this riposte on the Fleet Feather could take out the Jinx. Just wanted to get the upgrade down. Ik4rus now has a decision to make. Do I use this riposte to save this Laurent in order to make sure that you do not attack me with this Jinx this turn? Or do I try and hope that you attack with the Jinx and then riposte into the Fleet Feather to block it? Looks like it is just going to be that resolving, which, if no unit is played here, feeling free to attack with the Zaunite Urchin, doesn't seem to be the way it's going to shake out, though. He is going to go for the Brightsteel Protector. Alright, so he does still have the riposte, actually. Just making sure that his Fleet Feather does survive this. And now DDahyoni has some decisions to make. He could lose it all here if he attacks with this Jinx and this Urchin. And it looks like it is just going to be the pass, making a hard read here, saying I don't want to risk my Jinx. 4 mana is still plenty to do whatever you want with. Riposte being a very popular and powerful combat trick, not wanting to risk it. And now Ik4rus has another decision to make. Do you want to play this Vanguard Redeemer? Your opponent will definitely get to attack with the Jinx. But there's a lot of mind games that go into Runeterra because of the priority in the combat system and the way that the rounds shake out. It's a very, very in-depth game, and I love it for it. Ik4rus looks like he might play the Laurent Protégé and just invite this Jinx attack. Would still just get blocked out by the Fleet Feather Tracker for free. The Laurent could block the Urchin, make it a little bit harder for this Super Mega Death Rocket to come in, and it will actually be the Vanguard Redeemer. Just going to... Nope, still no attack from the Jinx, as he doesn't want the damage traded back onto it from the Fleet Feather Tracker. And a Zaunite Urchin and a Scuttlebug, a jury rig, if you will, is a pretty good pickup. The Urchin going to get to discard the bug, automatically get that Super Mega Death Rocket, as well as bank a couple of draws underneath of these Urchins. Jinx, an extremely powerful aggro tool, as you get to refuel every turn, and if you do dump the cards that you play, which is very easy in these low curve decks, the Super Mega Death Rocket is a really big payoff. And with no healing in this deck, not out of the question for the Super Mega Death Rockets to come down and kill him. Unfortunately, the riposte on the Laurent Protégé is going to take out this Jinx. Not much I can see DDahyoni doing about that. It will be a Fleet Feather onto the Zaunite Urchin. I would assume a Laurent Protégé onto this Jinx, and then a riposte onto the Laurent Protégé, this Super Mega Death Rocket. Not going to actually kill anything, as the Fleet Feather is trading itself off into the Zaunite Urchin, as it knows it will just die to the Super Mega Death Rocket. And now DDahyoni not in a great spot. depends on what comes off of this Urchin and the next one. The board starting to look a little small here for DDahyoni. Still rather big for the Shen Fiora player and Ik4rus. He still has 2 Bannermen in hand, which are going to honestly end the game pretty quickly here. So DDahyoni's got to find some more gasoline quickly. Could be another Jinx, could be one of the augmented experimenters. Either way, has to find something, and Flame Chomper's not going to do it. And that's the price you pay for these aggressive decks. You know, you eventually run out of draws, or run out of cards in hand, and all these discard effects start to add up on the other side. The things that you want to be discarding just find their way into your hand once all of your discard spells have been exhausted, and they don't get nearly as much value. A 0/2 challenger for 2 mana is not great. Getting one for free on the upside of a discard spell, now that's what you want to be doing. Unfortunately, 1 augmented experimenter already gone, thrown away to a spinning axe, 1 Jinx down, so it will just be Jinx, 2 Jinx and 1 experimenter left in the deck. Ik4rus top decking an Ionia card, going to feel super safe to go for this Bannerman, and it is going to go off, creating a very large board. And you can see in the bottom left here, DDahyoni not particularly pleased about the situation he finds himself in. Could still find his way out of it with a Jinx or an experimenter, but for the most part, this Vision not going to be getting any value and has no clean attacks here. Might go in with the Urchin just to draw and see what he can push out while he has the attack token and this 5 mana. However, the attack token goes away when you play this Urchin, or rather when you swing with this Urchin, so anything that you want to play here could get challenged by this Laurent Protégé, which will, unbeknownst to DDahyoni, get even bigger and badder in the face of either this Shen, this Bannerman, or this Riposte. Is going to be a block from the Bannerman. And they draw into another Flame Chomper's, not what you want to see. It's really just coming down to Jinx and Experimenter. Legion Grenadier, not terrible. Zonite Urchin, digging a little bit deeper, getting to things a little bit faster. And the Shen gonna come down, which is going to pretty much spell the end here once this Bannerman comes down and buffs it up. This single combat gonna take care of anything else coming out. No deny in this deck to stop the Experimenter effect if it comes off, but it doesn't look like we're going to make it to that point, as this is a huge amount of damage coming out of Ik4rus. Definitely going to eat the whole board on the side of DDahyoni, one way or another, either on the attack or on the block in the next turn. This Vision not going to get any value, might get a trade into this Saboteur, but that is almost, or this Legion Grenadier rather, but that is almost certainly going to be challenged by the Laurent Protégé. So it looks like Ik4rus's board will stay intact after this turn. Stay intact, not intact, that's not a saying. And it's going to have barrier anyway, so this is going to be a huge attack here from Ik4rus. Going to have to line up some blocks as much as you don't want to, and I think it is now out of the question for a Jinx or Augmented Experimenter to get him back in this game. Not enough burn in the deck. Unfortunately, going down to 5, no Decimates, no Mystic Shots. Only Get Excited, and that is certainly not going to do it. So game number 1, going to Ik4rus here. Just have to play through the motions. I cannot conceive a way where DDahyoni comes back from this. Going to hang on to his Challenger units. Try and find some way to get out of this. Goes down to 1, which is effectively the same as 20 for the purposes of having a clear board. And there's a Get Excited. Unfortunately, with no Mystic Shots, there isn't anything he can top deck on the next turn. Could just attack with his 2 units and see what he sees. As if they went unblocked, well, no, because if they went unblocked, then you don't actually get to Get Excited. So you're just going to Get Excited the face and then attack with these. Force out the block on them and pray to top deck nothing, as there's nothing in this list that can be drawn to get this game, as there are no Mystic Shots, as I have really driven home at this point. And just 2 life means that so much could have gone differently this game. A single Boom Crew rookie attack, 2 more attacks from a Legion Saboteur, anything really. When you come down to it and you're looking at your opponent and they only have 2 life left and you are playing an aggro deck, you suddenly have to rethink the entire game of like, did I miss 2 damage anywhere? That's not a Mystic Shot, and that is going to be game number 1 to Ik4rus, while DDahyoni contemplates that 2 damage that was potentially missed somewhere in the game, but probably not. Both players on top of their game and coming in strong here. And here we are with game number 2 of Ik4rus versus DDahyoni. Ik4rus, of course, winning with his Fiora Shen deck, is going to have to switch over to his Piltover and Zaun Shadow Isle aggro deck. Now, this is not your standard fearsome deck with Mystic Shots thrown in. No, this is fully embracing the Piltover and Zaun archetype, throwing in a couple of Boom Crew rookies, Used Cask Salesman, Augmented Experimenter being the only 6-drop in this deck. That's right, no Heckrums or Rekindlers coming out, as well as a couple copies of Get Excited and Mystic Shot. And on the side of DDahyoni, deciding that he wanted to switch up his decks a little bit and going into his Rally Mist Wraith deck with his Demacia cards being Vanguard Redeemer, Relentless Pursuit, and Detain, 6 in all. So these Wraith colors in his hand pretty likely to get the value that they need to. And of course, this Elise coming down with the attack saying, I don't care about losing my Elise, I got the 1/1 Spider. The advantage has been made to me in both life and cards. This Arachnid Horror almost certainly going to block the Elise, might block the 1/1 Spider, in which case it would be set up for a Vile Feast. No Glimpse Beyond on the side of DDahyoni to counter that either, so the safe play is to go for the Elise, and there we go. We're going to line up the blocks for the attacks, and the 1/1 Spiderling will come through. Going to pass the turn over to DDahyoni. He's probably going to play this Frenzied Skitterer. Just need to play on curve and a Vanguard Redeemer. Not going to do anything, as nothing died this turn. And it does put DDahyoni down to 5 Demacia cards in deck, so these Wraith Callers all the more likely to go off. And a Frenzied Skitterer to counter the Frenzied Skitterer. Always a funny interaction to me, as the first one to play it loses. And the second one, the defensive one, always going to be the King here in this aggressive matchup. The Relentless Pursuit, not a bad pickup for DDahyoni, as eventually he will have a board, especially with these 2 Wraith Callers sitting in his hand. On the side of Ik4rus, things get a little more interesting. No real minions to put down, maybe the Phantom Prankster to go for a Glimpse Beyond onto this Spiderling at a later date. Of course, if you try to do it proactively, you do open yourself up to things like the Mystic, or to the Vile Feast rather. However, a Phantom Prankster would almost certainly be answered by a Wraith Caller, but just proactively throwing down your Glimpse Beyond doesn't seem like the most optimal play, especially when you can do it in response to a block on a Wraith Caller. Of course, the patch a couple of weeks ago, removing Fearsome from the Wraith Caller, giving a little bit of wiggle room for these Spiderlings to come through and block things. But the Arachnid Horror are going to come down instead, going full on for the aggro plan, which unfortunately going to be full stopped here by a Wraith Caller. That is going to summon a Mist Wraith, Shadow Isle card, sitting on top of DDahyoni's deck. Ik4rus, trying to figure out how to navigate the rest of this turn, could throw something like a Mystic Shot at this Wraith Caller to open up some more convenient attacks. No reason to wait for the blocks, as there is a shadow blocking mechanic in this game, and DDahyoni is tapped out, except for 1 mana. Do not think a Mark of the Isle would be coming through here, even if you had one. It's Mark of the Isle, a terrible defensive card, only good as a defensive tool when you have the attack token. So, that going to come through now, going to attack with 2/3 attack minions. It says go ahead if you want to. You can trade your board into mine. I know that you are more board dependent as you play things like the Relentless Pursuit. However, Ik4rus just going for the Mystic Shot so that no Glimpse Beyond comes out of DDahyoni at an inconvenient time, and making a read that wasn't there. The Glimpse Beyond on top of his deck for DDahyoni now has it, so the Mystic Shot paying dividends here. A Crawling Sensation coming in for Ik4rus. There is no Elise on board, so that is a real Crawling Sensation. The second Frenzied Skitterer are going to come down here. Make it so that his 3 attack minions cannot block his fearsome spiders. It is only the Wraith Caller that could get blocked out at this point. Could see a Phantom Prankster come down if this is the turn that Ik4rus wants to get down this Crawling Sensation and potentially Glimpse Beyond something. There is still the Vile Feast in the hand of DDahyoni in case he goes for the Spiderling Glimpse Beyond. And it will be the Phantom Prankster coming down. Ik4rus has the life total advantage for another second here, but 19 still a little bit too high for this prankster to get a kill on. It'll definitely start to wear him down, though. It looks like the Glimpse Beyond is going to be the play here. Going to get countered out by a Vile Feast, which is very unfortunate for Ik4rus. Oh no. Just going for the block. Relentless Pursuit potentially coming out of DDahyoni. Waiting for this all to resolve. Might still play the Relentless Pursuit. Could just be waiting to see what comes out of Ik4rus over here. And it is going to be the Crawling Sensation. Getting a couple of 1-1s. This does seem to be the most opportune time for this Relentless Pursuit. 7 damage going through guaranteed, as there is nothing that can block these fearsome units. Will be the Relentless Pursuit in response, just to ensure he gets to go straight to attacks. Could even still attack with the Wraithcaller again. Nothing particularly threatening on the side of Ik4rus for that Wraithcaller, putting 1 damage onto it. Not a huge deal if he does decide to block with a Spiderling, and not Glimpse Beyond it. Although, DDahyoni now tapped out, can't do the Vile Feast to counter the Glimpse Beyond, and Ik4rus probably going to go for a Glimpse Beyond just because he needs to refuel a little bit. There is a severe lack of cards on his side of the board. It was DDahyoni's turn with the attack token initially, so Ik4rus will be getting that next turn. Could go for the Glimpse Beyond on the block here. 2 attack versus 3 attack, or 2 defense versus 3 defense. Generally not a huge difference in these Shadow Isle matchups. However, Ik4rus does have Mystic Shot, so that is a consideration. But going to go for the Glimpse Beyond, push a damage through, and draw Used Cask Salesman and another Vile Feast. However, life advantage solely in DDahyoni's hands, as well as the board advantage in terms of stats. And a third Frenzied Skitterer going to be the pickup here for DDahyoni, and that might be all she wrote here, as that is a lot more blockers going to be taken off the side of Ik4rus, while DDahyoni can just eat all of the attacks. Ik4rus only pushing through 7 damage, which 10, still plenty of life to not die to this Phantom Prankster. And no Hecarim in the deck list of Ik4rus to push through a major attack here. This could be all she wrote. Ik4rus thinking hard about what attacks he can and cannot make, what he does and does not want to trade. Might play the Used Cask Salesman before combat. Would only get 1 cask. Could go for a Glimpse Beyond onto the Spiderling first, try and find something a little more useful. Unfortunately, almost certainly going to be snuffed out by a Vile Feast here. Looks like the decision has been made. Gonna go for a Glimpse Beyond. DDahyoni, it's a pretty easy Vile Feast. Not a lot of value to be gained in matchups like this, as there are not a lot of 1 health minions in the Shadow Isle decks. However, Glimpse Beyond, the 1 counter for it, as the Spiderlings are generally what you want to be sacking off to draw your cards. They come in, they get their value, they die, and now there is a Spiderling for DDahyoni, going to also maintain a life total, as the Vile Feast does gain 1 life. Get it back from the Phantom Prankster. It will be 2 Vile Feasts coming through on the Mist Wraith. Unfortunately, not great blockers. Only going to be able to get thrown under the bus of these Wraithcallers. But this Frenzied Skitterer looking like it's going to be all she wrote for Ik4rus here in game number 2, as it will push through, by my math, at least 11 damage, as there is nothing in Ik4rus's hand that can be played. The Used Cask Salesman, actually, could come down after the Skitterer, which theoretically could put Ik4rus down to 1, but 1 is enough to survive. Unfortunately, the Used Cask Salesman not going to get any value, but does have to get thrown under the bus if Ik4rus wants to survive. It is the only thing in his hand and on his board that could block this fearsome unit. And DDahyoni going to attack with everything, as there are some value trades to be had, since the Arachnid Horror and Skitterer do not have 3 attack anymore. And everything must be blocked, as it is 7 damage coming through. Let's see how he lines these up. Almost certainly going to throw the 0-1 spiders under the bus, rather. Does still have to block this 2-1. Could block it. The Frenzied Skitterer. Seems like an okay block there. Still going to be surviving. Other option was the Prankster, but the Prankster might have to live in order to try and actually win this game. Fortunately, these hapless aristocrats not going to be doing a whole lot for Ik4rus here. Glimpse Beyond going to come through onto the Spiderling, saying I don't value the 2 damage onto the Skitterer as I am a Shadow Isle deck. The difference between 3 and 1 health on a unit is really just Vile Feast. I would rather get some cards, see if I can find a Hecarim or anything to cobble together a victory here. It's just going to be a couple of Elises and a Mark of the Isle for the hand of DDahyoni in terms of things that are playable this turn. Hapless Aristocrat going to come down, but mostly just flooding the board for Ik4rus. Can't block these fearsome units coming down from DDahyoni, the namesake of the deck. Very frustrating mechanic to play against in situations like this. However, all 3 Frenzied Skitterer are gone, which does leave DDahyoni with 2 fearsome blockers. Or Ik4rus, rather, sorry. Leaves Ik4rus with 2 fearsome blockers in the Frenzied Skitterer and Arachnid Horror. Considering playing the Aristocrat, gonna go for it. It's gonna take a miracle, and an Augmented Experimenter is a miracle. Off the top here for Ik4rus, gonna be able to discard 0 cards to draw 3. However, at 1 life, it might still be too little too late. Is going to get to eat one of those Frenzied Skitterers, though. There are a lot of things that DDahyoni could still top deck here to find a win. Detain going to be used on one of the fearsome blockers, you would have to assume. However, Augmented Experimenter creating another fearsome blocker. Perhaps just considering going to combat first. But it is going to eventually be the Experimenter coming down. Discarding 0 cards to draw 3 is always a powerful effect. And here we go for the Experimenter. Going to be going for the Elise. Makes sense as it does create a wider board, and 2 fearsome damage is still enough to kill somebody. See how he responds. Mark of the Isle almost certainly not going to come out here, as not a very good defensive tool when you do not have the attack token. DDahyoni just reading this to make sure that it is going to work the way he thinks it is. Trying to figure out if the minion disappearing would have any impact on this. For example, detaining his own Elise, stopping the draw 3. Not how this effect works, though. It will be a full grip of fearsome units and a Mark of the Isle on the side of Ik4rus, matching the Frenzied Skitterer, and the Elise going to be a Vanguard into a Mist Wraith. Still has mana for the Detain. Not really in any threat of dying here, as he does have a huge board of blockers and a healthy 14 life total. This Phantom Prankster not doing as much work as you would have liked here in game number 2 for Ik4rus. The Arachnid Horror, just everything going to swing out except for this Prankster. No reason to attack with it, as it is a free block. These Arachnid Horrors still clogging up the board of Ik4rus. Unfortunately, not going to be able to make way for this Elise and Skitterer. The 2 fearsome units going to be blocked out here. And it looks like that is going to be all she wrote here in game number 1. The Arachnid Horror and Elise. Well, just Elise could come down this turn, which unfortunately is not a fearsome blocker in the regard that it cannot be used to block fearsome units. And it is going to be the Mist Wraith coming down on the side of DDahyoni, probably followed up by the Elise. And this is just too many fearsome units for Ik4rus to handle. An Elise of his own going to come down, matched by another Elise by DDahyoni. That is going to be the end of the round. Going ahead here to a Relentless Pursuit top deck. Definitely going to shore this one up in favor of DDahyoni, evening up the score 1-1. Crawling Sensation going to be absolutely useless. And there's a surrender from Ik4rus. DDahyoni tying this one up 1-1 going into game 3 here. Here in game number 3 of Ik4rus versus DDahyoni, we are seeing a swap out of both players. Ik4rus changing over to his Ash Noxus control deck, something that we had seen a lot in the patch before. preying on the elusive and fearsome decks. And then on the side of DDahyoni, switching over to a Karma Ash deck, which is a little interesting to me, as the spell lineup for this deck doesn't seem to make a lot of use out of the Enlightened Karma. A lot of Frostbite effects, things like Deny and Will of Ionia. Health Potion really being the only one that gets any value out of being doubled up by the Karma, other than Entreat. And that's where I want to focus in on. So Entreat will draw 2 champions when you have this Enlightened Karma out, one of which will almost certainly be a Karma, and since you have one on field, Karma will then generate 4 spells in your hand and shuffle 2 more Karma into your deck, so potentially the value that is going to be gone for here, as well as Karma just being a value engine in her own right, creating random spells throughout the course of the game for herself to double up later. Now, for this game, as things are playing out currently, we have an aggressive start out of Ik4rus, going for this Omen Hawk into an Omen Hawk that was buffed by the original Omen Hawk, and an Iceveil Archer, likely to be the come down here, blocking onto the 1/1, so that if Ik4rus wants to attack, he has to attack with the 2/2 and trade that into the 3/1, not getting full value out of this 1/1 Omen Hawk in terms of combat trading. Now, what I want to focus on here as well is that the Ash Karma deck is running the Elnuk package, whereas the Ash Noxus one is not, electing for a more traditional approach of things like Trifarian Assessor and Ik4rus and Hearthguard to cop out its curve, as well as the neither player here going for the traditional Ezreal control for your deck that we have seen, valuing their Piltover Zon in other factions, as well as neither of them going for the Harrowing Ash deck that we saw play a mirror match in round 1. And a Brittle Steel looking like it's going to come out here for this Iceveil Archer. No Brittle Steel on the side of Ik4rus to trade this away, so it is going to be an Omen Hawk for a Brittle Steel. Not a bad trade, even though it was the buffed one. Rimefang Wolf on the side of DDahyoni, potentially answered by a Rimefang Wolf on the side of Ik4rus, although he could just wait for the attack, try to get down a Rimefang and pair it with this Legion Drummer. That is a 5/4 Legion Drummer, actually. Could just play it here, as it cannot be answered by a single unit on the side of DDahyoni. It would have to be attacked by the Rimefang Wolf and then blocked with the Iceveil Archer if he elects to play this Rimefang Wolf into it. But we shall see how this all shakes out. Not a terrible target for the Will of Ionia, honestly, as it will put this down to a 3/2 again. Will of Ionia having a little bit of issue finding value in some matchups. This one, not necessarily the case. There are a lot of things that get value on attacks, such as the Ash, so you just have to be a little bit smart about your timing with it. Bull Elnuk could be coming down here to contest this Legion Drummer. Unfortunately for DDahyoni, the Flash Freeze is going to take care of that right away. So this Rimefang gets to attack into the Rimefang, and the first strike granted by the supporter of Legion Drummer will take care of that, and a Bull Elnuk block will be met with a Flash Freeze. Freeze effects being necessary to get the value. Oh, okay, just going to attack on the 4/5 with the 3/2. Going to use the Flash Freeze on the 4/5 anyway, in order to have the Rimefang kill it. Which means a free damage-based block onto this Legion Drummer. Not wanting to take any chances about this Bull Elnuk not blocking the Legion Drummer, instead going for the more proactive play, saying, I want this off the field. And it is going to be an Iceveil Archer thrown under the bus for this Legion Drummer. Potential for the Rimefang to try and attack into it and get met with this Flash Freeze does seem to be the play that Ik4rus was going for here. And now Ik4rus going to be getting the better of these turn 5 plays, as double Ik4rus and Hearthguard going to make this very difficult to deal with later on in the game for DDahyoni. Of course, DDahyoni having the Ash and the Karma does have his pick of the litter when it comes to champions to play. Will of Ionia still on the table. The second Rimefang Wolf seems a little unlikely here pre-combat, so he could attack and see if the Flash Freeze comes out. Although it seems more worthwhile to just trade the minion, get these Ik4rus and Hearthguards down, start to buff up all the minions in your deck. Definitely something that is a little difficult for control decks to deal with. Just this 5-mana 5/5, first of all, being a huge threat in this matchup, as well as something that you do not want to Will of Ionia. the ability to buff up your entire deck again. Very powerful. And the 6/6 Hearthguard going to come down, as this one was buffed by the second Omen Hawk, as everything top decked before this was spells. And it looks like Karma going to be the response from DDahyoni, going to start generating some random spells to get value here. The first random spell going to be Tall Tales, a terrible card in this matchup. We'll just create a Yeti, an Enraged Yeti, a one mana 5/5 Yeti within the top 3 cards of DDahyoni's deck, unless he can find a way to get another Yeti out, in which case it will create one on board. Ik4rus here contemplating his attack turn. Could just be another Hearthguard. This this Karma rather, not necessarily having any clean trades without using a Frostbite effect. The Iceveil Archer pickup off the top, going to play dividends here if this second Hearthguard comes down. Could just go for the 2 attacks. Go push through 11 damage, use a Brittle Steel on this Karma if she goes for a block, and if not, is a lot of damage coming out. Not a lot of healing on the side of DDahyoni here, aside from the 2 health potion. The Ash deck traditionally lacking in healing. This Karma hopefully making up for it with these health potions that could get doubled if they come out turn 10. Instead, the Rimefang Wolf going to come down, threaten this Karma, make sure that it is going to get blocked out here, and it looks like it's going to be a Brittle Steel onto the Karma, as you do have to preemptively... Oh no, it is actually just going to be a straight trade onto it, not feeling the need to use a Frostbite effect here. And this is almost certainly going to be a Harsh Winds out of DDahyoni, rearranging the attack. Still time for a Brittle Steel. The hand of Ik4rus went dark, so I thought so. There we go. Okay, oh yeah, that's right. It's going to be the first strike onto the Rimefang Wolf. This is going to be 5 damage still coming at the face. Could see a Brittle Steel here just to protect the Rimefang Wolf. However, Ik4rus still having options. There are 3 Brittle Steel in this Ash Karma list for DDahyoni, and unfortunately the value on those is about to run out. Once this second Ik4rus and Hearthguard comes down, everything in the deck will have over 3 toughness at that point, except for Trifarian Glory Seeker, the 5/1 challenger that cannot block. That will only be a 7/3 and will still fall victim to these Brittle Steels. However, DDahyoni not finding any copies of those yet. Randomly creating an Oh, that's a pretty good one. So, the randomly created spell from Karma is Winter's Breath, which particularly works well with Karma, as it is kill all enemies with 0 power, then frostbite all enemies. So if you double it up with Karma, first it will frostbite all enemies, then it will kill all enemies with 0 power, which is everything because they all just got frostbitten. A very powerful combo, not one that he elected to put in the main deck, but something that the Karma is paying for here. Coming out huge with a big spell. Now he just has to keep that Karma alive until turn 10 to actually be able to get this board wipe off, and that would be a game-ending play, actually. There's not a Trifarian Assessor just yet on the side of Ik4rus, something that he desperately needs if he's going to accrue advantage. Could be a Flash Freeze here to protect the 0/6. Hope to keep as big a board as possible. If the Trifarian Assessor does come down, that is something that the Ash decks always seem to have going for them, at least these Noxus ones. So you're very feast or famine relying on these Trifarian Assessors to come at an opportune time and draw you a lot of cards. And that is going to be an Elixir of Iron, not a Trifarian Assessor. Very unfortunate. Meanwhile, on DDahyoni's side of the board, the Karma picks up a Shadow Flare, which grants all battling followers Ephemeral, something that could be used to clear the board here. Ik4rus not having such a high life advantage that he can afford to lose his board here. Definitely in need of a Trifarian Assessor. Looks like the Winter's Breath might come down, deciding not to save it for the Karma turn. Could play an Ash, as that gold border does mean it will get upgraded on play, having 5 units been frozen on the side of Ik4rus. And DDahyoni actually seeming to be in control of this game, not in terms of the life total, but in terms of cards. Could just go for this Winter's Breath to preserve his life total and find a different way to clear the board at a later date. As it will be Ik4rus's attack on turn 10. Could be a little bit too hard, praying for him to play a minion, or play a unit rather, prior to combat in order to get this Winter's Breath down at an opportune time. Instead, just going to go for the safe play here, saying I'm not going to take any damage. This Karma gets to continue to create randomly generated spells. And Winter's Breath being one of the few slow Frostbite spells, that one's going to be an Avalanche. Looks similar to the Winter's Breath. And here comes the Entreat. Now he does have all of his champions. So Entreat going to create Harsh Winds off of the Ash and Insight of Ages off of Karmas. Can wait until next turn to play that. Draw 2 champions instead of 1. And this Ash going to come down here fully upgraded. And there's the Trifarian Assessor for Ik4rus. Going to draw 4 cards. Going to be 2 Harsh Winds, a Brittle Steel, and an Iceveil Archer. All of the Frostbite effects suddenly coming out. And almost certainly going to be a Harsh Winds here on this Ash and Rhymefang Wolf. Could be blocked out by a Ik4rus and Hearthguard or Legion Drummer, as the Ash will Frostbite this Trifarian Assessor. Looks like those are going to be the only attacks coming out of DDahyoni. The Ash, of course, actually going onto this Ik4rus and Hearthguard. I thought it had already been frostbitten by something. That is my mistake. So anything could come out to block this Ash. No Frostbite effects in the hand of DDahyoni at the moment, so whatever blocks this Ash is actually just going to kill it, unless DDahyoni wants to commit this Will of Ionia. Could also go for the Shadow Flare, as Shadow Flare only affects followers, so the Ash would be safe. Unfortunately, Ash going to die to whatever is blocking it because of the Harsh Winds, so the Ephemeral going to kill the Ash first. Or the unit is going to kill the Ash before the Ephemeral can take its life, unfortunately. Here comes the Harsh Winds out of Ik4rus. From that massive draw 4 off of the Trifarian Assessor. Definitely what Ik4rus needed to stay in this game. Is now going to be a kill on the Ash as the only thing happening this combat. Deciding to throw out the Trifarian Assessor instead. In case of Will of Ionia, a really heads-up play by Ik4rus, actually, swapping that out at the last moment. Realizing that this Trifarian Assessor getting 3 more draws is a back-breaking play that DDahyoni probably cannot afford to make and will instead just have to lose the Ash. Not going to be a heartbreaking play, as he does have Entreat to get another Ash out of his deck. Crystal Arrow going to be the draw for DDahyoni, but Entreat could be played afterwards. Crystal Arrow going to freeze 4 minions off the side of Ik4rus, and then the Ash attack would freeze a 5th. Unfortunately, DDahyoni's board is not quite big enough to take advantage of it. However, getting an Ash down with this Rhymefang could prove to be very advantageous. This Avalanche not looking great, as it would just clear out as much of DDahyoni's board as Ik4rus's. Give Ik4rus some room to play more units, as he did just draw 4 cards off of that Trifarian Assessor, and has not had board space since he did so. So no telling what's in his hand from the side of DDahyoni. Just contemplating out the turn, trying to figure out how to not die to all of these Ik4rus and Hearthguards. Rhymefang Wolf, not paired with an Ash, however still strong with a Legion Drummer, as it is one of the higher attack, lower costed fearsome challenger units rather. Looks like Will of Ionia going to come out on one of the Ik4rus and Hearthguards. Nope, putting that idea to bed. Picking the idea back up, getting it out of bed at 3 in the morning and slamming it down. Ik4rus and Hearthguard going to go back to the hand of Ik4rus, something that DDahyoni cannot be particularly happy about, but feeling the need for the tempo play, perhaps counting out the hand space. And that Karma there that is now enlightened picked up a Bloodsworn Pledge, going to give 2 units +0/+3, thanks to the Karma Enlightenment, going to give 2 units +0/+6. And this Enchanted Crystal Arrow going to freeze most of the board, as well as draw 2 cards if this karma can survive. Unfortunately for DDahyoni, Ik4rus going straight to combat. Not playing any games, just going through for the lethal damage. And there are a few answers out of DDahyoni here, such as a block and then an entreat to get 2 champions. That's going to be 2 karma. Unfortunately, no ashes. Not that any of them would have turned into flash freezes anyway, as there is no ash on the side of DDahyoni, so it would just be an ash in the hand. Instead, getting 2 Insight of Ages. Going to go for the double Bloodsworn Pledge, get +0, +6, and that is a permanent buff. And then go for an Insight of Ages here, it seems, or not. We'll shuffle 2 karma into the deck, either way. Going to be a health potion coming down first. Going to go up to 20. And then an Insight of Ages, just creating enough hand space to get all 4 of the created spells. And here we have Key Guardian, another Bloodsworn Pact, a Take Heart, and a Deny. Going to go for another Bloodsworn Pledge, making his entire board survive. If not for this Harsh Winds, that is, that will take this Karma and Rhymefang Wolf down to 0 attack and to make sure that they die anyway. Let's see if he values his Rhymefang Wolves or his Legion Drummer more. However, a pretty commanding position from Ik4rus. Going to value the Rhymefangs and take those out. Legion Drummer going to not be able to take out this Icevale Archer. And that is going to be another big Trifarian Assessor on the side of Ik4rus, as the Trifarian Assessor itself having over 6 attack, or having over 5 attack rather, going to draw for itself. So that's another 3-card pickup, unless he wants to play the Hearthguard and then play the Trifarian next turn. Get another draw in as well as buff up his deck more, but actually going to go for the Icevale Archer, the 5/3 Icevale Archer, and that will almost certainly be followed up by the Trifarian Assessor, drawing 4 cards. Finally getting some ashes into the hand here of Ik4rus. And it's going to be another Karma top decked by DDahyoni. Unfortunately, probably not what he wanted to see here. He does have the attack token. Does still have this enchanted crystal arrow. However, does have to find some way to remove some of this board. A Karma Avalanche is only going to get 3 minions off of the side of Ik4rus. Unfortunately, not going to be enough. And will also clear out his own Karma as well as put him down to 1 mana, which he would have to draw a Harsh Winds or something similar in order to survive the onslaught of Trifarian Assessors and Avarosan Hearthguards. Probably looks like the Enchanted Crystal Arrow going to be the play here. Going to draw 2 cards. DDahyoni certainly in a rough spot in this game. Seems to have slipped away from him. The Avarosan Hearthguards coming in really big here. And these +2/+2 buffs onto all of the minions in Ik4rus's deck. Trifarian Assessor coming at the perfect time as well. The blowout of the Winter's Breath, unfortunately not lining up this time around for DDahyoni. Was forced to use it earlier to survive a turn, and unfortunately surviving seems to be all he's been capable of this game, as Ik4rus still sitting at a very healthy 20 life total despite having absolutely no healing in the deck. It is just going to be the 2 draws off of the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, looking for probably a Harsh Winds here. I would have to assume it is one of the only cards that will help him survive at this point. Ik4rus just considering Elixir of Irons or Brittle Steels. Doesn't have to worry about any attacks necessarily this turn. That is going to leave a Trifarian Assessor and an Avarosan Hearthguard unfrozen. A 6/6 and a 6/5. We're going to get an Entreat. And the animation going to play out for the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, followed by a draw, which is a Deny. It's 3rd Deny on the side of DDahyoni. Never feels great when you're dying with all these denies in your hand. Ik4rus capable of upgrading the Ash. Unfortunately, no space on the board to play it, and no room to no way in his hand to clear out some of his own board space. No way to kill off a Rhymefang Wolf, nice Icevale Archer. No Glimpse Beyonds in this Freljord Noxus deck. And now DDahyoni trying to figure out how to navigate the rest of this turn. Hand space is becoming an issue. Take Heart going to come down onto this Icevale Archer, making it a very powerful 9/8. Going to swing in here, which could be blocked out by something on the side of Ik4rus, or he could just take the damage. Really up to him. I would assume that the Ice Veil Archer is going to block it in favor of an Ashe coming down. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow being a powerful tool, but more powerful is the tool of just the Ashe attacking as an 8/6 and taking one of the blockers off the side of DDahyoni, hoping not to get stonewalled by any frostbite effects. Actually, Ik4rus can take both the blockers off the board. As the Ashe comes down, it will turn the other Ashe in hand into a Flash Freeze, which can be played pre-combat because it is a burst spell. Take one of the attackers, or take one of the units offline and then attack and take the other one offline and go in unblockable, which will almost certainly be too much for DDahyoni to handle. It's going to be a pass from DDahyoni as he was tapped out. Already gone to attacks. Ik4rus now going to pick up the Enchanted Crystal Arrow. However, that one is a slow spell. Just going to go straight to the combat. Looks like the Flash Freeze might come down. Checking the eyeball is Ik4rus. It looks like it will be the Flash Freeze onto one of the units here, and then Ashe will freeze the other one, making sure that DDahyoni has no blockers. And it looks like in this Ashe Mirror of the Ages between Karma Ashe and Ashe Noxus, as far as I can see, Ik4rus is going to be picking up the win here, taking advantage in this set 2-1, and deciding he doesn't even care about being unblockable. He wants to clear off this board, adding insult to injury, going for a huge attack, which is 26 damage, higher than the life total capable in this game. Going to go for an entreat. Unfortunately, that will only get an Insight of Ages, as Ashe will not turn into Flash Freeze without an Ashe on board. And hand space being a huge issue for DDahyoni across the course of this game. Karma getting too much value. Unfortunately, a lot of it was useless value, as these spells don't do anything. Too many denies, a Shadow Flare that he never found the time to play, a Tall Tales being one of the first cards created by this Karma. Entreat just getting more Karmas. Here we have DDahyoni just inspecting his hand, trying to figure out if there's any way to fight his way out of this hole that he finds himself in. Going to be a Key Guard. Going to draw one and then burn another. There goes the Brittle Steel. Wasn't playable on anything except for a Rhyme-Fang Wolf anyway. And the damage coming through. He needs to stop this Ashe at the bare minimum, as this Ashe will just kill him. Insight of Ages only going to get a... I don't even know what that card is. I don't recognize the picture. That is how obscure that is. That is Iceborne Legacy, which is grant an ally and all allied copies of it everywhere, +1/+1, but going to be useless in this situation, and that is going to be Ik4rus coming up 2-1. Here we are in game number 4 of Ik4rus versus DDahyoni. Ik4rus leading by 1 game, that's a score of 2-1, and both players deciding to return to the decks that they have already lost with. Ik4rus, of course, not having a choice. This is a deck that he still has to win a game with. It is his Piltover and Zaun Shadow Isle aggro deck that he lost to previously against DDahyoni's Demacia Shadow Isle deck. And, of course, DDahyoni returning to the Jinx Draven, which was not quite able to clutch it out against the Ik4rus Shen. So, these two returning to decks that we've already seen them on. See who can get the advantage here in this aggro matchup. Of course, the things like the Hapless Aristocrat getting a little bit more value in this matchup, where there are things that they can actually block. And it looks like DDahyoni going to start off very aggressively with this Zaunite Urchin, discarding a Jury Rig. Of course, going to get blocked out by a Hapless Aristocrat, and then the Spiderling that comes out also going to get to block something. However, no harm done, as this Zaunite Urchin will draw a card on death, and 1 damage will still get pushed through. It's going to be a Rummage picked up for DDahyoni. However, Ik4rus has his pick of the litter when it comes to 2-drops. Boom Crew Rookie and Arachnid Horror, 2 of the best aggressive minions in the game. Looks like the Boom Crew is the one that has caught his eye. And it could even be a Boom Crew answering on the side of DDahyoni. Perfect mirror here of 1/1s and Boom Crew rookies. However, Ik4rus is going to get more advantage, as the Undermine ability going to deal 2 damage to the face, and that is life total advantage for Ik4rus. Over the 3 health total, going to be a little bit easier immediately to answer for DDahyoni. And Mystic Shot pickup not going to be able to really push through anything unless a Spiderling goes for a block on a Boom Crew rookie. But this Frenzied Skitterer going to make it pretty unappealing for DDahyoni to attack with anything except for this Draven, and would have to use a spinning axe in order to have it trade with or rather kill this Frenzied Skitterer, but doesn't have a great discard target in his hand. It's just going to go for the naked attack. Perhaps Ik4rus won't block as he knows that the spinning axe is there. Does not know that, and it looks like it is going to work out for DDahyoni, getting the free attack in. Ik4rus not wanting to risk it, not valuing a random card in DDahyoni's hand that he is unaware of in exchange for this Frenzied Skitterer. A second Glimpse Beyond pickup for the side of DDahyoni. Unfortunately, not feeling particularly useful in these aggressive matchups. There's nothing that you really care about stopping a target on. No real value to be gained out of that like there is versus an Ezreal deck or a Heimerdinger deck per se. So you're really just kind of throwing these down when you find the time. In the meantime, definitely going to be better to throw down units like this Hapless Aristocrat and this Arachnid Skitterer, or this Arachnid Horror rather. Keep combining the Arachnid Horror and the Frenzied Skitterer. They are the same unit in my mind, more or less, as they come down and kill me. Here we're going to see a Legion Grenadier on the side of DDahyoni. The advantage, card advantage is actually relatively even. Obviously DDahyoni has more cards in hand, but two of those are spinning axes, which barely count as cards. Whirling Death. Unsure if that's Draven's Whirling Death or just a Whirling Death, as there is one Whirling Death in the list of DDahyoni. Unfortunately, did not catch my eye if that was a real one or a Draven. I believe it is the real Whirling Death, though. Not that it makes too much of a difference. And now Ik4rus going to go on the offensive with this Frenzied Horror Arachnid Skitterer and the Boom Crew rookie, the Undermine ability coming in, going to give him the life advantage no matter how these blocks line up. Although a Whirling Death, not enough mana for it on the side of DDahyoni, which is a little unfortunate. This would have been a prime opportunity to actually upgrade the Draven, getting a strike down onto the Boom Crew rookie as well as something else with the Whirling Death. However, that actually would have been a situation where the Glimpse Beyond dodging the target does matter. Upgraded Draven actually kind of a force to be reckoned with. A little bit hard to do without the Whirling Death, but having a 4/4 with Overwhelm gives a little bit more over-the-top damage in this matchup, as well as creating two spinning axes every time he strikes. Instead, Draven just going to get a clean block onto the Boom Crew rookie. Life total is just about even here, as 15 for Ik4rus and 13 for DDahyoni. However, DDahyoni going to build up a bit more of a board before his attack turn. Ik4rus considering the Mystic Shot, considering the Hapless Aristocrat, considering a Glimpse Beyond perhaps, but no, it will be the Hapless Aristocrat. Blocker coming down conveniently for that Legion Saboteur, as this is going to be 3 direct damage coming at Ik4rus no matter what, between the Legion Saboteur and the Boom Crew rookie. Jinx, a relatively good pickup, all these spinning axes in hand, not doing anything in particular at the moment. Could actually upgrade the Jinx this turn if he was feeling completely up to it and just wanted to discard his entire hand to the 3 spinning axes. Could also wait for next turn and draw some cards with it using the Augmented Experimenter. Could also just use two spinning axes rather. No, math doesn't quite line up on a rummage play for the Jinx, at least not on this turn, as the spinning axes would leave her with 3 cards in hand aside from the rummage. So we're just going to throw that play out the window, not talk about it anymore. And here comes the Undermine and Sabotage abilities from the Boom Crew and Legion Saboteur. Looks like some relatively clean blocks on the side of Ik4rus though. This Spiderling actually just getting thrown under the bus. Ik4rus not wanting his life total to fall too low. Could be a Mystic Shot coming onto the Draven and just lining up the Spiderling in case of emergency. And that does appear to be the case. This will swing the board back in the advantage of Ik4rus. However, with a Jinx in hand, the board is not the concern of DDahyoni. His concern is turning on this Jinx, smelling blood in the water. So few cards on the side of Ik4rus in terms of hand. Not a whole lot that could deal with this Jinx. It looks like it will be a Whirling Death onto the Arachnid Horror, saving the Boom Crew rookie, getting a little bit of value out of this Draven before he goes down. We'll turn off the Jinx for the turn. However, not a great concern of DDahyoni, sorry. Spaced out there for a second. Not a great concern of DDahyoni, as there is no Hecarim in the list of Ik4rus, so not a whole lot of burst potential coming out of his deck here. As long as DDahyoni can maintain this life total, going to feel relatively safe. None of the burn effects lining up in the early game for Ik4rus, as I feel they have to. No used cask salesman coming down. No phantom prankster coming down in a timely fashion. The later it gets into the game before this prankster comes down, the worse it is, as there is a diminishing board on the side of Ik4rus. So some dead... In regards to how the Jinx Draven deck has some dead top decks in terms of... You know, you draw the things later on in the game that you would want it to discard, things like Vision and the Jury Rig. You can draw Phantom Prankster later on in this deck, and it's totally useless without a board. Similar to the Rally effect in the Demacia Mistwraith deck, although the Rally effect obviously a little more powerful when you do draw it at the right time than the Phantom Prankster. It looks like this second Mystic Shot going to come down, take the Draven off the table for good, and make sure that the Whirling Death doesn't get value. Spinning Axe used on the Boom Crew rookie to trade it in, and it is now a pretty pitiful board on the side of both players. Ik4rus has a mystery box in the form of these two Glimpse Beyonds, and it looks like he is just going to play one, try and get this down before anything particularly threatening can happen to the Spiderling. And, of course, on the side of DDahyoni, has the Jinx for the refuel as well as an Augmented Experimenter. We will now see the used cask salesman and the Boom Crew rookie picked up on the side of Ik4rus, who now does have the attack token. Life totals sitting pretty even at 12 to 13. A lot of damage to chew through here, and the Jinx finally going to come down. Does actually have the ability to turn on with double rummage, if that is the route that he wants to go. Seems a little forced. Could just wait for the Augmented Experimenter next turn. But it looks like he is going to go for the at least the first rummage. See what he can find. Vision. Pretty good pickup here. Unfortunately, Draven might be sacked off to this Augmented Experimenter for the greater good of the Jinx evolution. Attack with the used cask salesman and the Boom Crew rookie, not wanting this Spiderling to come through and get value traded by this Jinx, even though there's almost no universe where the Jinx is going to trade this, or block this Spiderling, rather, almost certainly going to go onto the Boom Crew rookie. And he does decide to attack with the Spiderling after deciding that it was foolish to think Jinx would ever block it. Perhaps he can tempt him into blocking it by attacking with it, but I'm almost certain that this Boom Crew rookie is going to be the victim of this Jinx getting in the Undermine ability one last time. If that is the case, then used cask salesman and the Spiderling will hit the face. That's 6 damage in total, followed by the 2 used casks, put him down to 6. If he goes unblocked, which would put him down to, oh, choosing not to attack with the spider after all. It's going to be a double block on the side of DDahyoni, preserving his life total, not wanting to fall victim to the Phantom Prankster later on, or a second used cask salesman. 11, a much, much higher and safer life total than these casks, going to put him down to 9. Unfortunately, these are actually starting to bite back at Ik4rus as well. 10 to 9, life total staying even. It is going to be the Augmented Experimenter, discarding 2 Draven and a Vision, but will get the upgrade on the Jinx, as well as a fresh new hand, and 2 cards per turn. Jinx into the Augmented Experimenter always feels extremely powerful, because if you use the Augmented Experimenter to upgrade the Jinx, then 5 cards is what you're going to be looking at going into your next turn. And while it's not a Super Mega Death Rocket, it is a lot of, valuable cards in your deck to help aggro out your opponent. Still a lot of burn to be pulled out with these Get Exciteds. Some Legion Grenadiers. Only 1 left in the deck, as he is only playing 2 copies. It looks like a Glimpse Beyond going to be coming out in response here for Ik4rus, not wanting to lose his cask salesman for free. Is instead going to get a couple of draws of his own. And in this case, it's going to be Get Excited and an Arachnid Horror. Now, it's feasible for Ik4rus to find the burn to finish off DDahyoni here. Let's get excited, and this used cask salesman will put him at 4 life. Does need to find 2 burn spells in that case, or at least a phantom prankster to pair with this cask salesman. But the used cask salesman almost certainly going to come down here, as the casks do make very effective blockers for this Jinx and augmented experimenter. Legion Saboteur going to be coming down as well, pushing through 1 damage on the attack. Get excited. Being hovered by Sir Ik4rus, almost certainly going to be going at this Jinx, and then refueling with his own augmented experimenter next turn. Life totals following very low here for both players, although there is more burn in the deck of Ik4rus, as I have stated before. DDahyoni not running Mystic Shot. And it looks like this... There's going to be no answer for this on the side of DDahyoni. Going to have to just let that Jinx die. And decides to pass the turn, not wanting to risk his units dying to value trades here, or just getting blocked out by the casks. And a top deck Jinx on the side of DDahyoni. Could not find a better top deck here. Also has the option to empty his hand with this Get Excited and play the Super Mega Death Rocket, which I believe is actually going to be lethal, as this Legion Saboteur going to push 1 damage on the attack. Get Excited at the face is another 3. And yeah, that's going to go at the augmented experimenter, taking out his counterpart on the other side, which unfortunately means that this Legion Saboteur is going to get to attack. Oh, that's right, it is the attack token for Ik4rus. I'm sorry, I've been misrepresenting this turn entirely. Makes a lot more sense now. Going for the attack makes sense to take out this augmented experimenter and try and push through for the win. It is still going to be 3 cards on the side of Ik4rus. The Jinx now going to come down for DDahyoni, going to immediately get the Super Mega Death Rocket as the hand is already empty. And now there is a choice on the side of Ik4rus. Does he want to play the Elise or the Boom Crew rookie? Elise would at least get a Spiderling on attack. Or the Super Mega Death Rocket will then come down and kill the 1/1 Spider. There is a bit of a mind game to play here. Ik4rus could play the Elise and then not attack, in which case the Super Mega Death Rocket would go to the wayside. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but rather instead going to go with the Boom Crew rookie play. It's going to take this Spiderling off the board, as well as deal 4 to the face of Ik4rus, which means 1 more play like that, and that'll be all she wrote here in game number 4. All Ik4rus has, or all DDahyoni rather, has to do is use his 11 mana to empty his hand, and this Jinx will end the game here with a second Super Mega Death Rocket. Unfortunately, not a low enough life total on the side of DDahyoni for Ik4rus to burn him out. Would take just a little bit too much. And this Jinx not in range of the augmented experimenter as it was last time. Top deck Mystic Shot wouldn't get the job done either, as you cannot respond to your own skills unless your opponent responds first. So nothing that I can think of looking at this deck list that can actually kill this Jinx before he can play both cards in his hand if they both happen to be minions. There will be Vision and Brothers Bond. Yeah, that's absolutely going to be playable all at once here. Is going to be the Brothers Bond and the Vision. Getting the Super Mega Death Rocket doesn't even need the attacks to connect. Decides to take back the attacks after all and just play the Super Mega Death Rocket. And that is going to be all she wrote here in game number 4. DDahyoni tying it up, and we're going to a game 5 for the first time here in Group A, over in the round of 16 here at the Legends of Runeterra Invitational. Game number 5 getting underway here for the first time in Group A between DDahyoni and Ik4rus. And of course, both of these players are going to be playing with decks that they have lost with previously. Ik4rus once again on his Shadow Isle Piltover deck, and DDahyoni returning to the Karma Ash. Now, if I had to guess, I'd say the advantage is definitely to DDahyoni in this Game 5 here. The Frostbite effects being extremely effective against the kind of deck that Ik4rus is running. And the Karma having a lot of late game value. The Health Potion in his hand already is going to be a decent amount of healing. The Entreat going to come through, pick up another Karma, as there is nothing else for him to do this turn. The questionable card, I guess, would be the Will of Ionia. Definitely going to be a little bit harder to find value in this matchup with that. A double Boom Crew rookie coming down for Ik4rus. For the second time this tournament, we are seeing a triple Boom Crew rookie opener from a Piltover and Zon player. Did not work out too well the last time, if my memory serves. A hapless aristocrat coming down alongside them could just be the magical ingredient needed. Going into 7 mana here on the side of Ik4rus. Almost certainly going to play the Boom Crew rookie before combat. Going to get blocked out now by an Ik4rus Sentry. But it is still going to be at least 6 damage coming at the face, and the Elise coming down as well is going to make this extremely difficult for DDahyoni to deal with. I said that the advantage was for DDahyoni, however, I did not account for a triple Boom Crew rookie opener, as that is going to be a lot of direct damage coming in. This is, by my math, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13 from the Elise. This is a 13 damage coming through from a board of 1 and 2 attack minions. It looks like the Will of Ionia going to have to be used on the Elise. That's going to be a lot of damage coming in. The triple Undermine going to put DDahyoni down to 11 before blockers are even declared. DDahyoni thinking very hard about where this is going to go. Could Brittle Steel on this hapless aristocrat. It looks like he is just going to take the OK trade on it. That is going to be a total of 9 damage coming through. DDahyoni picking up a relatively useless Deny, could be used on the Get Excited, however he does already have a copy of Deny in his hand. This second one not going to get a lot of value, and DDahyoni not loving what he's seeing here. Picking up an Ik4rus Sentry. Karma almost certainly going to have to be the play, see what random spell can save him. Ik4rus going to be happy to just throw down this Elise again. Might even play the Get Excited before a Deny can come out to stop it. Could not be a consideration on his mind, though. Is no other play available outside of a Glimpse Beyond into a Crawling Sensation, although not necessarily the most impactful thing. Could actually throw this Get Excited at the Karma here, just make way for some free attacks. Only 2 damage needs to come through from Ik4rus through units on this next turn, as the Boom Crew rookies will put him down to 2. Health Potion going to heal him up a little bit, although Ik4rus not aware that that one is there. It looks like it's going to be a block from the Elise, followed by a Vile Feast. Unfortunately, this one going to get counteracted by the Brittle Steel, but that is just going to be a second Elise then, coming out of Ik4rus here. Going to watch DDahyoni's player cam in the corner here as he realizes that this Elise has a brother coming down, and Harsh Wind's almost certainly going to have to get played by DDahyoni on the next turn to survive. In fact, oh no, it's going to be the Glimpse Beyond, actually. Not caring too much about getting the Elise down. And a Mark of the Isle and a Frenzied Skitterer pickup. Going to be really big here for Ik4rus, who's making this look easy. Coming in such a long, drawn-out Game 4, but coming back quick and strong here in Game 5. And Harsh Winds not going to be enough. -2, that does mean Health Potion is going to put him up at 1, unfortunately. That's going to be counteracted by a Mark the Isle, which will then almost certainly eat a Flash Freeze out of DDahyoni's hand. So DDahyoni going down to 1. Still a lot of Boom Crew rookies to be dealt with. However, if a Flash Freeze comes down on the Mark of the Isle, then that will be all she wrote, thanks to the Get Excited on the side of Ik4rus. things have a very good chance of lining up in Ik4rus's favor this turn. DDahyoni potentially thinking about a deny onto one of the undertows, or undermines, but it is going to be a Mark of the Isle over onto the Spiderling. DDahyoni going to be a little happy to see that, you would assume, so that this Flash Freeze can get value in terms of 2 cards. However, that is going to open it up for the Get Excited, and in an extremely quick Game 5 here, Ik4rus is going to take the match over DDahyoni in an aggression that we had not seen before. This time the Triple Boom Crew rookie working out in this tournament. And that is going to be the quickest game I have seen so far. Just in terms of time limit, I believe we're 5 minutes into the game. Karma going to get a Shatter, which is not going to do anything. And unfortunately, that is going to be DDahyoni's tournament life snuffed out here as Ik4rus advances on to the round of 8 here in this Riot Korea Legends of Runeterra Invitational 2020.